Last, on Everdark. The plan to reintegrate Callie went very well, until they all realized that one of the Callie slicers was not in the room, nor was Fiona. Roan Tithe has taken Fiona captive. Episode 143, Edge. Roan. Balthazar said his master's name softly, but it still had a bitter taste. It would be him. Of course it would be him.
Fiona, Callie has got her, Balthazar,
Arceus said, and his lips writhed back from his teeth, the old berserker rage coming to the front at the danger to his love.
We don't know that, do we?
Christian asked, his gaze snapping between Arceus and Balthazar.
Maybe she's just having problems locating him.
Only one way to find out, Balthazar said. He closed his eyes and concentrated on Fiona's mind. She wasn't just not in Nightviolin. She also wasn't on Earth, but in another part of the Everdark entirely, so reaching her would be difficult. His brain wanted to say that this was too much distance, that it would be impossible to reach her when she was so very far away. But there really was no physical distance at all between one mind and another. He thought of the click and clack of the beads in Fiona's hair. He imagined her turning her head to look at him and how the beads would click and clack. He pictured it again and again. The sounds filled his ears. Finally, he saw her silver eyes. He pictured them meeting his own. Her head turned, the click and clack. Her eyes would fix on him. Her lips would then form the location of where she was and if she was in danger. Head turned, click, clack. Silver eyes, lips moving. Balthazar's eyelids flew open. Destiny. Balthazar breathed. Callie has her in destiny.
The Iros city in the Everdark,
Caemorn stated, informing those there that didn't know. The hair on the back of Balthazar's neck lifted. He thought of the arrogance of naming his own city Destiny, and yet here they were, in the endgame, and Destiny was calling them. Could it really have ended any other way?
But any gate to destiny has been lost since the war.
Arceus cried, his eyes sparking.
How did Callie get there?
It was not lost to the immortals, Arceus, only to vampires who were not born at that time.
Sia reminded him, but then her head turned towards Balthazar.
At least, not those whose minds were fully their own, with memories intact.
How is he keeping her there?
Julian asked, eyes shadowed.
She should just be able to teleport away from him, shouldn't she?
This final form is another Iros vampire, Balthazar said as he felt the brief touch of Roan Callie's mind. It was as familiar to him as his own. He suddenly swallowed metallic, tasting saliva.
Who did Callie take over?
Arceus looked ready to chew through rocks.
I can't believe that we wouldn't know them, do we?
Balthazar gave a sharp laugh. No one we know, Arceus. No one who has ever stood out. No one of any importance, at least not to my mind. The Callie Slicer's final form was that of a man in his late 20s or early 30s. He had mousy brown hair and a rather pallid complexion with a spray of freckles across his nose. He was only 5'7" in height, with a narrow body that bent forward as if he needed to peer ahead to ascertain that every step he took was safe. He was the type that shrank away from loud voices and kept to himself on the edge of parties. He watched and chewed his fingernails to the quick. He was unremarkable, completely forgettable, but that was only on the surface.
Well, he's bloody important now that he has Fiona.
Arceus cried.
It's not your fault that you didn't know, Balthazar, who he really was.
Christian told him, intuiting the blame he was placing upon himself. I don't know him at all, my darling. Yet I should have. He passed me by many times. I vaguely remember his face, but I thought him to be of no consequence. In my great wisdom, I saw only what he wanted me to see, Balthazar said bitterly. All this time, Roan was still alive. Roan was Callie, my bastard maker, and I didn't know it all. All this power, and yet none at all. He stared down at his hands that he lifted up before them. He had been having fun taking down the Callie Slicers. He had actually thought himself clever and powerful. Actually Iros again. And now, am I the master or the slave? Damon should do this. I should step back, ask Damon to take charge. I can't do this. Arceus's hands were suddenly grabbing his shoulders and shaking him.
Balthazar, Fiona needs you.
He focused on his friend.
You beat him before when you were barely a babe out of the woods. You can do it again.
Could he? Or would he fail again, like he had so many times before? Balthazar. Damon's voice was soft, but it had the effect of a whip crack in his ears. The Vampire King was dressed all in black, except for his beloved long fur coat. He stood up. His imposing frame alone would have made him unforgettable. He did not hide who or what he was. He was the king. He spoke, and Balthazar acted. You are Eiros, Balthazar, Damon said in that same soft, unhurried tone that yet seared the ideas into his mind. Destiny is your city. You need to take it back and finally assume the mantle of leadership of your bloodline.
You handled over half a dozen of me at once, Balthazar.
Caemon reminded him.
You can handle this last remaining part. Roan Callie just wants you to believe you can't, but objective reality says otherwise.
He looked at Caemon. As he had absorbed more of himself, Caemon had become different. Not crazy or murderous or sociopathic. Well, not more than he already had been. Quieter, though. More thoughtful. A little more remote. And Balthazar knew that was where Caemon liked to be, because there was less noise and less chance for rejection in this distance. But he spoke up now in a way denigrating his own power, which cost him to say. I thought I handled him before, but I was wrong, Balthazar said. And I only did it by the skin of my teeth.
No, you did not.
Caemon's lips formed a small smile.
Surely you understood why what you did was so very frightening for all the older vampires.
Balthazar frowned. I killed my master.
With ease.
Caemon added.
It was the last part that gave me the leverage over them I needed to exile you. Roan was no one's favourite, Balthazar. He was almost universally loathed. Having you kill him was a good thing all around.
Can't let fledglings go killing masters and all that, though, Balthazar said with faux amusement.
Maybe, maybe not. But the way I was able to move them to act so swiftly, instead of sweeping it under the rug, was that you shouldn't have been able to do what you did as easily as you did it.
Caemon told him.
You were too strong, too soon. I told them that you would rule them in no time at all if they weren't careful. And as always, I was right.
Balthazar snorted. As always.
Yes, as always.
Caemon inclined his head.
And you, as always, will defeat me.
Balthazar stared at him. He couldn't mean that. Caemon did not look away. He did mean that.
I am more powerful than you, Balthazar.
Caemon said with no false modesty.
But you always defeat me because you understand me better than I do myself. And no matter how much I know about you, you are still a mystery to me at your core. That is just as true, if not truer, for Roan Callie.
Click, clack. Silver eyes locking on Balthazar's. Fiona mouthing the word, help, destiny, help. No more delay. No more hesitation. He had to do something here. Damon, can you open a gate to destiny? Balthazar asked. Even before he had finished the sentence, a gate blazed, unanchored to anything but the floor. A blazing portal. That's new, Balthazar said as he tilted his head towards the gate. You needed Fiona and the crew to go to Earth to access the other parts of the Everdark. Life is about change, Damon said with a smile. Continual change. Balthazar could see destiny through the gate, and he froze. Time stood still, then reversed. Like lasting, solace, and Nightvallen, destiny was made of that lovely, soft, glowing white stone. The city curved around a silvery lake that reflected the twin moons above. Graceful towers speared the heavens. Each was lit with an eternal flame, blue-white and lovely. The light of the mind, Balthazar found himself saying. Christian looped his arm through Balthazar's.
The flame in that tower is a different color than the rest.
Instead of the blue-white flames like in the other towers, this central tower had a purplish-black flame that was almost invisible against the night sky.
The remaining part of me is there with Fiona.
Caemorn said as he stepped to the other side of Balthazar. Damon offered his arm to Julian, who jumped up from his throne. Sophia and Seer also rose up. Arceus was practically charging towards the gate, but stopped just short of going through it. "Are you all coming?" Balthazar asked. "Of course," Damon said.
We need to see the end. I've been picturing it for so very long.
Seer touched the clean silk bandage that covered her missing eyes. "Go ahead, Balthazar. We will follow," Damon told him.
We're almost to the end of Everdark. To think we posted episode 1 in the summer of 2022, and while we knew it would be about 2.5 years until it was done, we couldn't really imagine the journey or the friends we'd make along the way. Now it's 2025, and we're preparing for Everdark Academy as our next podcast. Since Spotify now allows comments, tell us, at either YouTube or Spotify, about when you found Everdark, what you expected when you first started listening to it, and what your own Everdark journey has been like.
Balthazar tightened his hold on Christian. He met his fledgling's gaze. Christian nodded, and faith in him flowed over their bond. Balthazar strode forward with Christian and Caemorn, followed briskly by Arceus. The moment he stepped foot in destiny, Balthazar drew in a deep breath as if he finally could. Snow drifted down from the sky, and his breath frosted the clear air.
Beautiful,
Christian murmured as he looked up at Destiny's towers. "It will be even more so when I get that spider out of my attic," Balthazar said, glaring at the central tower with the purple flame. There were 2 figures up there, Roan Callie and Fiona. The tower was over 100 feet tall. It was going to be a little anticlimactic if they had to climb up all the stairs, or even if they jumped their way up. He should have asked one of the wyvern vampires to come right with them, and between one moment and the next, they were at the top of the tower. "Thank you, King Damon," Balthazar said. "Thank Julian. He was the one who did it. I wanted to see if he could teleport others without touching them," Damon said.
You've got a lot of confidence in him."
Balthazar laughed. "I do, as I do in you," Damon answered. "Aren't you joining us?" Balthazar asked, as he realized that neither Damon or Julian were up on the tower with him, Christian, Caemorn, and Arceus. "Don't wait on us. We're taking our time," Damon told him.
Fiona! Let her go, Roan!
Arceus roared and made to reach for an axe that wasn't there. He growled in fury when his hand came back empty. He was screaming at Roan Callie, who had Fiona in front of him, one arm around her neck, even though he had her mind. Using physical strength showed a lack of confidence. Weakness, actually. Balthazar found himself smiling, at least until he saw the look of muted rage and fear and pain on Fiona's face. Sweat trailed down from her hairline as she struggled mentally to free herself. Wyvern was a creature of the air. Holding her in one place like this was wrong. Arceus balled his massive hands into pile-driver-sized fists and rushed Roan Callie. He used his mental abilities as a shield that would knock Roan Callie back. "Arceus, no!" Balthazar cried. Attacking Roan Callie when he had such a hold of Fiona's mind could hurt her. Roan Callie could snap her sanity, but Arceus was beyond reason seeing his lover in the hands of their monstrous master. But Roan Callie didn't harm Fiona. He didn't have to. With a dry laugh, Roan Callie sent a wave of mental control at Arceus. The mental shield knocked most of it to the side, but not all. Arceus veered just slightly off course. A wobble, just a little wobble, but it was enough. Arceus let out a yell of rage as he barreled right past Roan Callie and Fiona. He would have kept going, but for Balthazar returning control to him at the last moment. As it was, Arceus was able to stop his forward momentum, but he teetered on the edge of the tower. Christian moved like lightning and grabbed the back of Arceus's robes, pulling him firmly back onto the stone tower. "That's my grandchild, yes?" Roan Callie asked about Christian. Balthazar felt Caemorn watching to make sure that both Arceus and Christian were all right. They were. He'd already confirmed that, or he would have acted himself. Balthazar realized with a sense of amusement and warmth that Caemorn was as protective of Christian as he was. Roan Callie continued when he said nothing. A speaker to the dead. They've always been mine. The special ones like that. Gods, even your voice is forgettable, Balthazar said with a sigh, wanting to stop him from speaking about Christian. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. I can smell his mind. It's like something rotting under old leaves, Balthazar realized. And you still need others' help to come up against me, Roan Callie sneered, the indifference like a match to gasoline. He's hotter than usual, out of control, knows the game's up, Balthazar thought. Actually, not really, Balthazar said with a yawn. Caemorn is here. Oh, wait, I mean, Callie is here to absorb you, which you will eagerly accept in a moment. Arceus and Christian are here for the show, and Damon and Julian are just strolling around looking at the city. You don't even want them coming up here. Roan Callie's eyes narrowed and his jaw clenched. Fiona suddenly let out a cry of pain. Arceus's head lifted up like a maddened bull again. Christian was trying to calm him.
Balthazar, you can do this.
Christian told him. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. With horror, he saw Christian react to his memories. Curl forward, clutch his chest. Wretch. Arceus was frantically holding Christian now, but Christian was screaming, thrashing. Caemorn shot him a look as if to say,
Fix this, Balthazar. What are you allowing to happen?
What was he allowing to happen? Why couldn't he stop it? Why had he allowed Christian to see that, experience that? He should have kept Christian away from here. Arceus, too. They weren't safe. It wasn't safe. Be calm. Damon's voice whispered through his mind. Calm. That meant first things first. That meant thinking instead of feeling. Calm. Balthazar winnowed the connection between them and pushed the memories back into the deep, dark hole they belonged in. Christian collapsed against Arceus. Balthazar felt a trickle of sweat run down his temple. He had hurt Christian. His foolishness. He had to put a stop to this now. But getting a hold of Roan Callie's mind was much harder than the others. The shield he was using to protect himself from Balthazar was smooth as a glass dome. But there would be an edge. The tiniest edge, but it would be there. Or what about those times I had you thinking that I'd peeled every inch of your skin off? Roan Callie continued with an almost fiendish glee. Balthazar sought for that edge, that tiny edge, but everything was smooth and his mind slipped over that barrier. His nostrils flared. More sweat poured down his face as the memories rose in him, distracting him, battering against him. The next section of the podcast has been abridged.
Fiona! God, stop it, Roan! Stop it!
Arceus screamed, even as he was as pale as milk and couldn't leave Christian.
Balthazar?
Caemorn's use of his name was strong and insistent.
What are you doing?
Don't distract me, Balthazar hissed.
Stop letting him play with you.
Caemorn stated.
You are not his child. He is not your master.
But...
No, Balthazar, no buts. You are Iros, the great Iros. Make him know it.
Caemorn insisted.
I can't reach his soul until you do this.
At that same moment, he felt Christian reaching for him, loving him, wanting to give him strength, even as the young man was still trembling from the experience of a few memories. Memories. Roan is doing this, bringing them up, making them real again. Except they weren't real then, and they certainly aren't now. Balthazar's eyes narrowed. I have to make him angry, make him lose control to find that edge. Did you know that Caemorn brought the Harrows back? Balthazar asked, grinning. It was quite a thing, wasn't it? He asked this of Caemorn. Caemorn grunted and nodded.
The power of the Callie Palace is legendary, so that's...
They're going to become vampires. In fact, they're thinking of asking Caemorn here to be their master, Balthazar said. Caemorn's head snapped towards him, unable to hide his shock. Roan Callie's forehead furrowed.
But we killed them. We kept them prisoner.
But they understand that you and Artemis aren't really Calais. Caemorn is Calais, the real Calais, the core of Calais, Balthazar said. And they like him, because he's nothing like you. That's not true. I am the true Calais, not that neutered, pathetic wet wipe, Roan Calais yelled. His face grew redder with every word. Wet wipe? You mean like a moist towelette? Balthazar repeated and lifted his eyebrows as he gave Caemorn a grin. I really don't think that King Damon would love a wet wipe. What? Love? Oh, yeah. And Caemorn is Prince Julian's particular friend, Balthazar went on. Both of them hugged him. Hugged. Can you believe it? I'm sure you can't. Nobody hugs you. Nobody ever would. I'll hug you. Bring you close and rip out your goddamn throat, Balthazar! Roan Calais yelled. And in that moment, when he switched his full attack from Fiona directly at him, Balthazar felt the edge. He smiled as he slipped underneath it and ripped it off. Roan Calais' eyes widened as he felt his mistake. He sent intimate memories of violence at Balthazar. Not the pain, but the way that Balthazar had begged Roan Calais to love him, to reveal that he still needed and wanted his love despite everything. Rage suffused every ounce of Balthazar's being as he remembered being rebuffed again and again and again until he was bleeding out, his heart ripped out. The remains of it were in between Roan Calais' teeth. No more. I am Iros. There was a visible wave of power that came off of him and struck Roan Calais. The creature was thrown back from Fiona and slammed against the ground. He skidded a few feet before going still. He was completely unconscious. Fiona gasped and brought her hands up to her throat.
It's over? Yes, it's over.
Fiona got out. Arceus and Christian hobbled over to her. Balthazar pulled Christian into his arms. He kissed Christian fiercely. I'm sorry, Christian. I didn't mean to let you experience that.
Shh, it's all right. You were amazing. You stopped him. He did that to you over and over, and you were able to stop him.
Christian murmured against his throat.
You ended it.
He did more than that.
Arceus grinned. He and Fiona were embracing.
Can't you feel it? This whole place is saying hello to us. Hello to you, Balthazar. Oh, I'm sorry. Iros?
Yes, yes. I am an immortal. I am the great and powerful Iros. Balthazar chuckled weakly. Do not look at that man behind the curtain. Just gaze upon my heavenly glory. Caemorn stood over the unconscious Roan Calais.
We should finish this before he wakes again.
It wouldn't matter if he did, Balthazar said. The connection between him and I, well, it's gone. Caemorn nodded.
Good. I hope you forget it. All of it.
Balthazar kissed Christian's temple. He hesitated before saying, Do you really want this part back, Caemorn? Caemorn looked up at him.
You are worried that this part of me returning will make me want to do those things to you?
A little. I'd rather you didn't want to.
I won't. But this darkness is a part of me.
Caemorn told him.
But I promise you, it will never touch you or Christian again.
Balthazar slowly nodded. He felt Christian agree with his decision. All right, I believe you. I trust you, Balthazar said. Let's end this. Join us next time for episode 144, Whole.
There are a lot of ways to make money, but nobody gets into writing to strike it rich. I started Wraith Rain because nobody was publishing the kinds of stories I most wanted to read. So I decided to do it myself. What I didn't expect about this style of self-publishing was how I'd get to know so many of my readers and subscribers as people. If I started out today, I'd probably just rely on Amazon to sell my books. But that wasn't a real option in 2010. I'm so glad it wasn't. This way, I've created a real person-to-person business, just like an old school store in a small town where everybody knows everybody. Fans have made friends with each other. Early readers who were once college students now have families of their own. It's incredible that so many people have been a part of my life for so long. I hope you'll stay until the end of Everdark and beyond.